Okay, so now we will take care of the bubbles. So if you take a look at the final render, or actually the final composite here, I have not only some bubbles and debris that are on the tank overall, but we also have some bubbles rising from the ink. So they are being created within the ink volume and they start to slowly rise upward. So first of all, let me show you the reference that I took. So hopefully you're able to see here. I know it's subtle, but there are some bubbles rising and these bubbles are being created within this volume of ink. And this is what I'm after. I'm going to try to imitate, not perfectly because in my render I want to have much more bubbles, but still I want to take as a reference how the bubbles rise and how they are being created within the ink. So let's start. Let's dive into Houdini. So we have our ink geometry. So if you dive in, you may notice that we created a null called out ink. I'm going to copy this null, Control C, dive back out onto the object context, and this time I will create another geometry node. I will call it ink bubbles. Dive in, and inside I will create an object merge. This one I will name merge ink. And here under object 1, you can paste what we just copied. And also make sure that this property transform is set to into this object. That way, if we have transforms here under this node, those transforms will also be transferred into this merge. So let's change the color of the merge. And we can also turn off the rest of the geometry. Currently, we have the Ghost Other Objects option. You can click on Hide Other Objects. And this way, we're only seeing whatever is inside this geometry node. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a delete node. And remember, we're currently exporting 3 volumes. If you take a look at the information currently, you'll notice that we have a density, a color, and a velocity volume. For this specific case, we only need the density. So let's delete all the rest. So under the delete node, under group, you can click on the button to the right, select density. So currently we are only deleting the density volume. We want the opposite. So here under operation, select delete non-selected. So that way we're deleting everything except this density volume. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I want the bubbles to be emitted from the density of this volume as it's being created. So let me go back to frame 1, press play. So I will use frame 30 as a reference. And what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to create a scatter node. Connect it here under the delete node. And the scatter node will detect that we have a density attribute and will create points throughout this density. So what I want is to have these bubbles emit from the inside. I don't want to have bubbles on the edges of the ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remap the density values to clamp the values that are here on the edge, which are usually lower density values. So to remap this density, I'm going to move the scatter downward. Actually, I'm going to disconnect it for now. I'm going to create a volume Wrangler. Make sure it's connected under the delete node. Let's change the color of this node. And let's call it remap density. So what I'm going to do is create a ramp where I can clamp low density values. So let's do this together. Let's type the following: f at density equals 0.5 semicolon and press Control Enter. So if we keep reducing this value, eventually we will have a very low density volume. Let's try with 0.05. So there it's practically invisible. So what I'm going to do is grab the current density values and remap them. And to do this, I'm going to use the chramp vex function. So type chramp, open parentheses, close parentheses, and this function will expect two things. First of all, the name of the ramp, and the name can be whatever you want. So let's open quotes and type density underscore ramp. Then make sure to close quotes. And then type comma. And here we need to add the value that is usually expected to go from 0 to 1. So currently the density may go over 1, but that's fine. If that's the case, values above 1 will be clamped. So type f at density, type Control Enter to evaluate, and apparently nothing's happened. We are unable to see the density, and this is because the ramp has not been created. So we need to click here on this button to the right to create the interface for this ramp. So to the left of the ramp, we have the lower values, and to the right, we have the values ranging up to 1. So again, if we try reducing this point to the right, let's change the value to 0.05 as we did before. You'll notice this density is starting to decrease. So that's fine, we want that, but only on the edges. So select this flag to the left and bring it towards the right until we start losing the volume here on the edges. And we only want the core density to exist, and this will be the one creating the scattered points. This way we will have points created only inside the ink. So I think I can go higher here. And let's try with this. So if you take a look at the volume with and without this Wrangler, you'll notice that we're clipping only densities on the edges. So let's try now connecting the scatter. Let's press play, see what's happening. So of course, each frame, the points are being regenerated in random positions, but that's fine. In the end, we only need one single frame where the point exists to create a particle.